Okay. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the roll call. McGee here, bottom line. Barrington here. Nichols here. That's right. And join in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, agenda approved. Is there anything from staff?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. There are a few additional items that we, packet materials we have, and then one additional item. We have an additional item number 9D, a discussion of Metropolitan Council density and preservation. A discussion on that as a 9D, follow up from last meeting. And then we do have a few additional attachments or materials that were provided to council in advance. We have an update to the attachment for the fee schedule. We have the city administrator position profile, as well as a salary comparison, and then also a resolution for item 200. Memorializing if council so chooses to move forward with the reorganization. So those are our items that we have tonight. And then just a note that item 7A, we do not have council meeting minutes from December.
Okay, taking that out.
So we'd remove 7.
Okay, anything? One, please. So, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Points. Like that. For the second. Yes. Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Hey, commission representatives, we have John Horn and Gary Earthberger here today. Thank you. Went on to open forum.
Anyone wanting to speak on open forum can come to the podium and state your name and address. We generally limit those remarks to 3 to 5 minutes. I'd note anyone joining us virtually can press *9 and click reactions and raise your hand. Open forums generally for items not on the agenda. We will have a couple other public comment opportunities throughout the meeting.
Can I speak at open forum?
Sure.
I feel like we've done that before.
Yeah. 10500 trailer. Unless nobody else wanted to speak as far as that we saw.
I do not see anyone raising their hand virtually, and no.
So what's your name? It's John Bottom. Is it okay if I do it from up here, or do I have to go up here? Do it from here. So I wanted to thank staff and the rest of all the volunteers in Corcoran, all the people who donated for the success of our night tonight. It showcased how much gets done in our town that sometimes the city, and especially the council, has nothing to do with. And in theory, council's sort of the leader, but in so many of these events, we just hitch our wagons to all the good things that citizens and volunteer organizations did. And I picked up this hat there. It says Corcoran for anybody that can't see it. And the same goes for Country Days this weekend. For most of you already know this, but most of our city events are not the city putting on a city event. It's the organizations from within our town do the event, and we help. Like, I think we have budget for like trash removal, but everything that gets done is again volunteer and community organizations. So I appreciate that. That's part of why I moved here 10 years ago, is because of that things weren't led by the city, and there are volunteer organizations that do the heavy lifting in our town. They don't get near enough thanks. And for people watching. There's still tickets available for Friday night and Saturday night, and also everything on Saturday for kids is free. And I suppose their parents too, they don't have to pay. So it's fun, come out.
What else?
Mayor and council, at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Don't have any presentations or recognitions today, so we will go on to consent agenda, which consists of items 7A through E. Does anyone want to join? B. Thank you. I have 7B for 7.
Can we pull item B?
Yep. Anything else? No. All in, entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items E through D. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. And then E, Alan, do you want
I just wanted to, it's always nice when we have donations
to read it?
to, yeah, at least say thank you to the stanchion for providing bars and snacks to our police officers. Working very nice. I figure it's, thank you very much, stanchion, for doing it.
And I note that this donation is a little bit different than we've done in the past. We brought the resolution in front of you beforehand just to make sure that you wanted to accept that donation beforehand. So we're trying to do something a little bit different. Sometimes we'll get the funds in with no advance warning, but this time we knew that they were looking to donate and wanted to make sure council is comfortable accepting that donation.
Make a motion to approve item 7B.
The motion and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving right along. We now have cover page. One second here. No planning business today, so we will go on to unfinished business. We have a public comment opportunity for items 9A through 9D. The city administrator search process, bid alternate for City Center Drive, pedestrian crossing policy and quote, and the additional item that was added.
Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on any of these items can come state your name and address and approach the podium. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or click reactions and raise your hand. If you're joining us virtually. Mayor and council, at this time, no one is raising their hand. And we do have 6 folks online. So do have a following. To our staff. We're very interested in that.
We'll go into 9A then.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have Patrick Melvin here today with us from David Drown and Associates. He is working with the city to move forward a city administrator search process and can hand it over to Pat.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. I'm glad to be here. You're probably not very glad that I am here. It's a sad day, but certainly we picked a good one the first time, and we hope to do the same second time for you. So I look forward to working with you. Just to give a brief background on myself, I've been with BDA for several years. My background is in county government as well as city government. So for about 10 years, I was an assistant in Wright County in Buffalo, Minnesota. I was a county administrator for 10 years in McLeod County, and then I went over and I got involved in trying out the city side of things. So I was with the city of Arlington and Minnetonka Beach for a little while before I came over and joined DDA, but I primarily work on recruitments. I also do some organizational studies, and I know that you worked with Mark Casey previously, and I'm looking forward to working with you this time through. Basically, it'll be a very similar process unless you want things to be changed, which is your recruitment, and we can certainly make changes if you would like. But again, it will be, for the most part, very similar to what it was done. So, if you have any questions or any feedback, I think that you'd like to do differently, I'm certainly receptive to hearing that now. Otherwise, I did provide some salary range information. As Jessica indicated, we did have some questions about where you were at. I didn't know exactly who the city compares with, so I just ran in and told some cities, obviously with some varying populations. Some similar to the city of Corcoran, some a little bit smaller and some bigger. So I'm certainly happy to start out with any discussion that you would like to initiate based on the salary range. And just for the record, the salary range that we are looking at for this is about hourly a minimum of $60.42 to a maximum of $73.71, which is range of 125, 673 to 153,316. Of course, it's divided depending upon the person's background and experience. So that person will start depending upon what their background is. Any questions?
What is the market like these days? Are people moving? Are they job shopping a lot, or are you seeing a lot of applicants in the positions that you're posting for?
You know, I would say we're having some challenges in some of the less competitive city administrator type positions. But I think in the salary range that you're in, I think that we will find that there are a number of applicants. You know, in terms of quality applicants, I think you're gonna find that varies. You know, in terms of how much experience do they have. There are a lot of individuals who are looking to climb up the ladder and become a city administrator. I think there are a lot of city administrators who are comfortable where they're at right now. You know, if they have a good council, if they've been looking someplace for a period of time, I think they value staying put, quite honest. But we will certainly reach out. A lot of our recruitment is not just, you know, locally, but, you know, other states, Midwest. So we will certainly do a very thorough search and find individuals that will fit what you're looking for in the next city administration.
Our title is city administrator, and I know some cities have city managers, which gives them a little additional flexibility and things they can do that a city administrator doesn't. Is there any reason for us to think about moving our position to city manager rather than administrator as far as attractiveness to potential candidates? Not that we could do that fast, but in theory, is it something we should think about?
To be honest, I don't think that the city manager versus the city administrator is that significantly different. We're individuals who only apply for the city manager position. But I think what we really look at is that salary. In terms of obviously trying to, whenever somebody looks to change into a new jurisdiction, they're looking to, you know, have an increase in pay, and they're looking at their costs of possibly moving, relocating. And so, no, I don't think the city manager versus the city administrator title is going to make the city difference.
Thank you.
The question from me is, how much recruiting do you do, or is it just wait for applications? Do you go and talk to current administrators and stuff and, hey, this there's an opportunity here, is how much people talk recruit, but a lot of recruiters just sit back and wait for applicants. And then go off of that application process. Is there a way to get out there and start talking to city administrators that you ever call a cold call and say, hey, are you thinking of moving into a different city?
You bet we do.
Okay.
We do, we reach out, I mean, obviously, having been in the business, we have individuals, we know of some cities that are doing a really good job in terms of. Providing internship opportunities. We know individuals who are working at, some of the colleges and universities. We have, probably from last year, we partnered with LinkedIn. And so we're now able to really reach out to individuals who have city experience in their background. And I will make phone calls, I will contact neighboring cities. Challenging position and calling other city administrators and saying, do you have a staff person who you think would be qualified and good fit for this position? Because oftentimes, if they do refer someone on, and in most cases they do, because they want that person to be successful. Same time they're then having the public agency that they. So.
No, I understand that. I just.
But yes, we do.
Do have a connection to that. I think we should maybe already reach out to the organization, but you and I were talking about our former city administrator Brad Martins is now with Shoreview.
Yeah.
But he's president of Minnesota
City County Managers
yes.
Association.
So might be a good connection. They may know places to post or people to reach out to.
Perfect. I wanted to ask about the comparison sheet that was circulated. The population number appears to be out of date, and I'm wondering what the range might shift to if it were more current. If we're thinking we're going to end the year about 8,000 residents versus the 6,185 that were listed here, how would that affect the range?
Well, I think you can kind of see if you were to compare actual population. I kind of identified the ones that were higher population. Belle Plaine is one of those with a population of almost 7,500. You are above them with regards to both the minimum and the maximum. If you were to look at Delano, which is probably, based on that whole population of 6,185, they're right in line with you. They're a little higher on the minimum and they're a little bit lower on the maximum. So I still, regardless of the population number, I think you're right in line with where you should be. As a matter of fact, there were a couple of communities that I had initially kind of identified that I removed because they had population. Hutchinson was one that obviously it's a little further outside of the metro, but their salary range was $54 to $82, a little higher on the top end, but you're higher on the minimum. Another one was Rogers, a little further again outside of the metro. Rogers has a population of about 15,000. Their minimum was about 57.62 an hour. Their maximum was 75.88. So there again, you're higher on the minimum, a little bit lower on the max. Waconia, one that has a population, city that has population of just over 13,000, has a minimum of 69.67 an hour and 81.96 an hour on the max. So they're a little bit higher, but I think that Corcoran and the size of your population, I think that you're right in line where you should be. I don't think that you'll have a problem finding applicants for it. I'm never going to tell you that, that it doesn't help to add a little bit more money, but I don't think that it's going to make a big difference for the city department. I think that you're really,
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Looks like Jessica might have.
Oh, I was just gonna, no, last time we didn't put a map, we had talked about potentially not putting a maximum. Do we want to do that?
We actually do that one.
I don't know though. I think we might have gone a little bit above our maximum last time.
Yeah.
You know, we all have made comments in the past around the candidate pool in the most recent search, with the exception of Jessica, wasn't what we had hoped to see in terms of quality. Certainly plenty of applications, but not a lot of, solid experience in a growing city with sophisticated systems and a good staff environment with long retention. So I would be open to looking to do whatever we can to improve pool quality through looking at that range. We wouldn't necessarily have to use the entire range, depending on, as we were told, the experience that the actual offeree has and brings to the table. But in terms of just getting at the widest net possible, I'd be open to looking at a higher top end number for the posting.
By just putting the higher number in there or leaving it open end like it was.
I wouldn't leave it open because people are going to gravitate to whatever number they see. I think you need to put a number in there.
And Mr. Mayor, I think I said the minimum is this, then based off experience, we can talk things. That's the way I wanted to open up the pool to see what we would get, and then we figure out the top end based off of the applicants that we had. That either way, we're almost saying the same thing. But I mean, if you put a max number in there, we could get people that just expecting to make that max number right out of the gate too. I don't want to do that. I'd rather be able to say, here's the base, or here's the minimum, maximum. What have you made for yourself? What have you done for your community that you've been a city administrator or assistant administrator? I'd rather have a little bit more freedom than locking it down.
I was just gonna ask, in what part of your discussions with applicants do you talk about salary expectations at open night? How early on in those discussions?
Typically in our brochures, that's the salary range is posted on there, so that individuals do know what that range is. And typically, we don't have any discussion about that until the decision is made. And you as the council have selected the individual, then we jump into negotiations. I seldom have applicants. I seldom have applicants calling me in advance and say, explain their situation. I have had in some cases where the salary has been lower than this. I have had applicants indicate I'm currently working at a job making, X number of dollars. The top of the range is no increase for me. Is the council willing to consider higher? In that case, this council could no, that's. But that was a significantly lower salary than 12, with the 125. Typically, it doesn't come up.
I think that's what my point is going is that if you're gonna change the salary range, state it, you have to be comfortable with paying that person. Right now, it's true, because we don't want to get a situation where we put them down to two candidates instead of one candidate, and then all of a sudden their expectations out of our range and our expectations based on their experience, so certainly less. So I think we'd be fine with the range that we have posted.
We're gonna vote on that. That's part of the
Question. One more question
It'd
I
be
would
part of
have,
the
if we
program.
don't get applicants that we're pleased with and stuff, what happens if we go out with another search with? If we were to talk about the range, I mean, that's my thing is if we get candidates that. What do I want to say?
We don't have to accept anyone, right? You just start the search again. I think that's what came out in the last search.
So basically, this would be our second search that we are doing. Because just leaving, prior to the 2-year guarantee, all of the DDA work is at no expense. But then there's the advertising cost and testing that we have to pay for that the city will incur. So if we aren't able to find a candidate with the second one, the second recruitment, I'm not sure. I think the city would be looking at having us to do another recruitment or doing something.
Okay.
So,
And there's the cost in time and wear and tear on existing staff. So I think we should do all we can to maximize our chance of success the first time through. I think there's also a risk of generating some stigma if we go through the process again and don't come out of it successfully and to repost. It'll be harder to draw higher quality people into the pool if they didn't apply the first time. So I'll make a motion that we modify the salary range to have a top end number of 8196 is the one that I wrote down from the expanded summary, and keep the same minimum level.
Just to clarify, top end number 181, what?
81.96
Oh, okay.
per hour.
For an hour. Okay, I was thinking the same way too, so.
64.
So we do have a motion to amend that in the position profile. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay, I guess I'd rather stay.
I don't want to go that high.
What's on the,
If I say nay, or I say nay, I'd like a little loss.
You can make your own motion.
Huh?
You can make your own motion.
Yep, so that one, dies for, fails from me.
Before we make an motion, do we recall how many candidates we had in the last one? I think there was quite a list that we could bring through. We might not thought they were qualified, but it seemed like we were ranking like 16 different people or something like that.
There was a lot of people. Yeah.
But also, like, the last time there were like 13 city admin jobs that came up in the last year before we hired Jess.
It was a
So-
great time.
Yeah, so like, we kind of got the people who didn't get any of those 13 jobs. So,
This may or may not be different than that.
I mean, I don't know what the movement has been like. But I'm gonna make a motion that we go up to 78. Same as Jeremy's
78.
motion, but 78.
Second,
Which gets us to just a clarifying question on that.
It's 156.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just yeah, so
8196, it's actually 170, 177.
What do they base it on? 2,000 hours? or-
2080 hours.
Oh, 2,080.
Yep, that's enough.
so the motion on the floor would be 162,240 for the top end.
Is that what you wanted very much?
Yeah.
Okay, motion second, no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
aye,
And
And then I did want to clarify, we do have the timeline post up on like a August 14th posting of the position closing September 11th. Selecting candidates at a work session on September 28th. And then we do not currently have a date for those interviews. When we had our last meeting, it sounded like the week MEA.
in October 19th.
Just wanted to clarify what dates would work. So we can put that appropriately in the profile.
I won't be around the stage. I won't be here the 14th to the 25th. We could do. But how long are you gonna come that week, the whole week? Yeah, I'm probably moving out of town that whole week. What you're gonna, typically the treasurer was, I don't know, if it'd be able to, with the four, and like the second week in October, or we're looking first week in November, maybe.
You know,
Did you say you're gone the fifth?
No,
October, what are we
we go
doing?
to the 14th through the 20th.
it will be difficult for us to move it ahead simply because it's a process and we need to give applicants time to provide us with information. And then in some cases, we have to send that information out to a third party to do background checks and do some information.
Not just
Something like that. So if we can push it out further, that would be good.
Yeah, let's try to find a date that works for. There's meeting single day,
One
right?
single day.
Is this a whole day?
It's a good chunk.
First 30 seconds.
Oh, is that when we,
Didn't.
oh, the interviews?
Yes, this would be the
Is that-
interviews.
September 20, is that the date?
The select candidates, that's the reviewing of the, you all would get the video interview, questions and
Yeah, do we do
summaries.
that here?
We would do that here on the 28th of September, and then the interviews were being proposed for October 17th. So we'd be looking at sometime the,
That was like they're looking at, putting out the following week. So the week, the 29th. 30th of
so
October.
the 30th of October.
First few days of November, for that second week.
So I'm gonna just, September 28th, we meet at noon.
No, September 28th is a work session.
So that's
That's just the, selecting the
I
candidate.
see, okay.
Yeah.
I just gotta put that on my calendar.
It happens to be a regular meeting. I just put it on we put it on a regular meeting day.
Yeah, okay.
And so basically you'll have information a week ahead of the time. You'll go through that information and come to the meeting with your top 3 or 4 candidates. And then we will have a discussion and we'll have 4 or 5 candidates if you invite in to interview. That October date. You got it.
So the 19th is MEA.
The 19th and 20th. is
Yeah.
right.
Is there a day of the week that works best for staff in terms of staff?
I think most staff is, been flexible for days. I think last time we did it on a Friday, but I think any day of the week is.
We're looking at Friday, looking at like Friday, November 3rd, or Friday, November 10th.
Well,
October
Oh,
doesn't
the
work
10th we have,
for anybody.
Veterans Day.
I could do the 27th. Anybody else gone that week?
Yeah. Well,
Or the
does it have to be a
30th.
Friday?
No, it can be any day, whenever works best for you all. I think staff generally can.
Sure.
I have stuff. I have this down. Almost like we have that.
Yeah.
The 30th. The 30th. The 30th.
The 23rd would work for me.
Not that it matters, I'm out of town on the 23rd,
You're out of town on the
in
23rd.
Colorado.
I think, just something to think about. Are we gonna hone in on 3 candidates that first round? We ended up with 3 at the end. But
That'd be the same.
so at this meeting, we're proposing for a date, we're gonna end up with 3 applicants.
Well, we will know on September 28th how many candidates we'll have. I think in the past, generally done between 3 and 5
Correct. Yeah.
candidates.
We recommend 4 or 5 because oftentimes these individuals have other applications out. So there's about a month's period of time. As we're checking in the references, gathering information, and during that time, it could take another job. There may be a personal situation that causes them to determine now is not the right time to make a change, so. Various factors.
We determine the number of people we have at that 28 days on, whatever the date, which will actually put that in.
I hate to put it out, like, if you said, hey, you're a candidate for the Corcoran city admin, we'll see you in November.
Yeah. Problem is, I think we logistically can't move it up. And schedule wise can't do those last 2 weeks. November. I mean, in October.
If you would like more time, we can certainly post and not include in the posting when that interview date is, with the idea that once applicants have applied, immediately following that, we do alert all of them as to when their interview date will be. If you'd like a little more time to figure out schedule.
Yeah, right.
Is there any day that week of October 23rd that works for everybody? Or
It sounds like Alan is out that week.
I thought he said the week after.
Well,
Oh.
to be honest with you, I can't tell you at this point. I know one of those weeks I'm gonna disappear in the plan. So. But. I didn't do that wishy-washy.
Well, we can put it out so you figure out which week it's gonna be, can't we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like you said, we can just say, you'll be sometime.
yeah.
so we would have a meeting where we do the interview and then the job offer would come that week.
We've generally done the job offer the day of, if there can be a preferred candidate that is selected.
Okay.
We typically move pretty quick to try and
Lock it up.
put together a contract and get it back. So
It's like NFL free agency, you don't let them get on there.
Pretty much. Yeah, I would suggest sometime that October 30th through November 3rd, if we don't want to decide on a day right now.
I would not recommend doing third. I think we must do it here.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of
That's
pushing
a
that
holiday.
week is the 23rd.
Yeah,
What were you saying about Veterans Day?
Veterans Day is the 11th, so it'll be observed on the 10th.
Okay. Oh, but that's what we got.
Just throwing it out
Yeah.
there. We were looking at one point we had talked about Friday,
You're doing it on Monday, November 6th.
November 6th. November 6th.
Okay.
I could do that.
yeah.
All right. Okay, so we got that.
Perfect.
And then,
I did want to just add two notes. There were some corrections that the mayor had discussed with me related to adding a couple items, like some of our innovative things we're doing with Granicus and digitization, as well as outlining some of the grant monies we've got and some of our other infrastructure projects. So adding a couple notes into the profile for that. And if council's comfortable with that, we could add, make those changes and then review them with the mayor and myself and give the okay for posting if council's comfortable with that. And there are a couple typos.
You can include our big picture from 19.
I was gonna do our this year Night to Unite photo.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a new photo.
I think I can incorporate all of that. I can make a motion to approve the position profile. See here, with some final edits as approved by the mayor and city administrator. Adopt resolution 2023-67, authorizing the posting of the city administrator position beginning August 14th, closing September 11th. and call for a special city council work session on September 28th at 5:30 p.m. For the selection of city administrator candidates and schedule interviews for November 6th. Time.
I think to be determined.
How much? Second. Is any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If council is comfortable.
I thought that the longest part of our meetings was finding him.
Always the weird stuff.
Process wise is, I think, staff had some discussion today about being able to be, wanting to, if council is comfortable, be in the process and potentially, if there are ways to be part of the process potentially earlier, or however, potentially earlier than last time, if council is comfortable with that. That's been a request.
The feedback and the staff interaction last time was very useful for nearly a year for all of us. So you have a plan on how that be.
We have not discussed it. I was gonna talk with Pat to see what that potentially could look like, as well as seeing if it's, then we might want to bring in for the day of interviews of an outside city administrator to sit on the panel. Was another suggestion.
Okay.
And so just wanted to
Figure
see if
that
that's
out.
comfortable with council. We can present an idea of what that would look like, but sure. Or if not,
Jeremy?
it's completely.
I'm not sure who I would want to be the outside city administrator. I'm open to the idea, but I feel like I value staff's opinion very strongly, because you would have to work with first, the challenges and opportunities that the city will present. I'd like to better understand what we would hope to get from an outside administrator.
Well, there is some discussion of potentially Brad or Phil Curran, as he is has worked with us in the past. So, not just
Those two would
an
be
idea.
If you want to bring back some specifics on, I would love to be great.
I agree with Karen. I only have Brad. I don't know, Phil Kern's moderator, and that's fine. I have no idea. It's like we'd have to interview a city admin to interview.
Right. Yeah, I think if Brad's willing to do it, we can provide it back to the team in general and city, obviously, so. Good to catch up with him, so.
If I could just ask for some clarification.
Yes,
Did you say that staff wanted to be involved earlier in the process? Is that what-
that was a question that we, some discussion was had, if there's ways to be involved in the process,
earlier?
potentially
Versus-
earlier.
Mhm. Okay.
Last time, didn't you guys spend the morning with the candidates, and then we had them from noon to 3:30 or something, and then from 3:30 to whenever we made the decision, so.
Yeah, the last process, the final candidates took a tour of each department, a guided tour of the representative of that department. Followed by interviewing with the department heads. And then the department heads also met with the people who did the guided interview with the candidates to take feedback. Then we summarized our interview findings and forwarded that to the council for your consideration. So it was still fully for the council's consideration, but with the input from the staff portions earlier in the day is how I recall it playing out
Yeah.
last year. And I think the spirit of the conversation with the earlier involvement, I think a lot of the staff appreciated it the way that it went last year. I think the thought was wanting to provide insight on, or be able to help the council as look at insight early on in the candidates, because a lot of the staff, like Kevin can translate as to what, a person's experience with water and sewer in that type of community, how that would translate here. More of it just to help, decipher what they're reading as opposed to filtering necessarily. I think that was just trying to be a resource for the council members as they're breaking down what they're looking at.
Take place at that 28th meeting.
But we'll have to figure out kind
Yeah.
of what options might look like, but I think is just a discussion that we ended up having today we were preparing for the council meeting and wanted to make sure to share that with council.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready, 9B.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Uh, I would like to use alternatives for the city center project.
Okay, so motion.
Can I just,
One technical clarification, it's technically alternate 5, there is a typo. It's a minor technicality, but it'll be included in the bid as alternate 5. And again, this just seeks bid, doesn't approve anything yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't approve the plan.
Yeah, it just accepts the plan and allows us to take a bid on it.
That's the question.
Mhm.
From a public safety standpoint. We're using the graded area to buy a car for the wheelchair.
Likely, yes, so, you know, yeah, you can see the difference between the area, but I think it would be parking the patrol fleet vehicles or on staff people, yes.
My only question on, so I guess what maybe a concern is. We're parking patrol vehicles and you're behind this grass island. Would it be better just to eliminate that island if the patrol had to go on an emergency call instead of having to go around that, they could pull out a lot easier.
Yeah, we had some conversations with planning on that very issue, and I think it ends up making that roadway become kind of expansive as you're coming in off of City Center Drive was the one consideration. And the other one was if there was ever a desire to secure that area, either with fencing or a gate, that it would probably make it more challenging to go across. As you can see in this plan, you can see where the edge of the building is, where the existing curb is, and where the new tower would be. That would be a
Yeah,
pretty big
I thought-
space.
I thought it might be a concern of that, and then it would just probably add more room for, you know. The path in which you would actually go around that wall versus just flying a whole extra.
it would be good, Kevin, and
I mean, we could really do, you could probably a horse piece between each option.
Might save yourself some money compared with.
I mean, so this is just getting the alternate in there. We could still do a field change and make that decision later. This kind of gets the quantity then the way the projects are bid out, so.
I'm fine with
I would
that.
maybe just get the bid in, we can package it, and then if we do want to modify it, can be a field change and dealt with through quantities. So maybe we leave it at that.
We did have motion that kind of tweaks
Second.
the change. So, motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, 9C, pedestrian crossing policy.
We can make a motion to approve the attached process policy.
Second.
Okay, well, clarifying question, this policy.
Well, there's two parts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So well, I'll include the quote from Design Electric in my first motion.
Okay, so 9C.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, further discussion, I do have. Just a couple quick questions on funding sources, for the. Well, for the actual install. Equipment.
thank you, Mayor and Council. So I think there are a few different ways that, as this is a trail crossing, we could look at potentially using park dedication funds. We could look at budgeting it in our next year's budget, or having it as part of our bonding for next year. Or we could look at having it be part of our long-range planning fund. So we don't have our allocations for the long-range planning fund for 2022 yet, as the audit hasn't finished. But as we do, we could look at including that under that, or look at park dedication or budgeting. So there's a variety of options. If you were to ask me to recommend, I think at this point, I recommend long-range planning fund or park dedication for where those might come out of.
The motion. Silent on the issue.
Yeah.
Would staff want clarification on that now?
If you'd like, where you would like the funding source would be great to know.
Yeah, so we, I think there's a month or two lead time until to order it, then we can get it installed, have them installed this year. Just one note, there's some mention we did contact Pulte. And they've verbally agreed to the restoration work that's outlaid in here, and they were going to inquire about any additional cost share, but I did not get anything back from them yet. I'll keep continuing to reach out, but so the 20,000 or 20,677 is what we have to plan for. If they come back with something more, we'll take it. But I would feel comfortable assuming the restoration work will be absorbed by them based on the correspondence that I've had.
Awesome. Would you guys be open to a friendly amendment to add in paid for out of the long range planning fund pending final numbers in the audit? Else, the division fund there from park litigation.
We should have quite a bit in the long range plan.
I think
We've
I
allocated. to it
believe
this
we
past
do.
year.
As we're looking at the audit, I don't have any new numbers for you on what might be added in.
I would like to accept that.
Agreed.
All right, perfect. And any other discussion on this theme?
My only concern is Speed Road, when is that going to be completed to 116?
I think there was some of the delay because of the grave site that was.
The grave site and stuff, but how much of that construction work and traffic will degrade this if this is put in before Speed is done?
I don't think I would say indifferent.
If there is degradation and such, is there a way to get it?
If there's degradation, we have warranties, things like that. in
Okay.
Construction, so if they damage anything, they have to restore it, but this is outside of those construction limits, so there should be a curb and sort of interaction between the two projects, so, yeah, if they were to hit it or damage it. But this is solar powered, so you can go over there.
Gotcha. Thanks for coming up with this as fast as we did. Good job.
I had an additional follow-up question. So this is dealing with the Stieg area. We also had talked about trying to do a project around Policeman of 2 crossing. Is that also does the current motion address that project as well, or is that still for?
You can reformalize that. That's gonna be absorbed into our budget. Our public works budget, because we're doing that with some of our striping quotes and in-house, so we won't be we're doing that in-house, and so if you want to reformalize that tonight, that'd be great, but it's not an additional expense that you need to plan for at a long range fund.
I think it's included not in this, but
I think it was done the previous time when you authorized us to get these quotes, but if we want to double down just in case.
I'll make a follow-up.
okay. Sounds good.
May I ask why long range planning and not park dedication?
So I think my recommendation for doing long range planning is that with the upcoming park project, trying to preserve as much as we can for park dedication. Michelle noted that at the Parks and Trails Commission meeting, we did approve, or they did recommend approving the policy. We didn't have the quotes at the time, so the Parks and Trails Commission has not recommended park dedication. But we didn't have a quote on quotes at the time. So just a note that they did not, we didn't have costs presented. We didn't have quotes yet.
To me, it seems because there's not a park in the immediate vicinity, doesn't naturally lend itself to being a park dedication funded expense as well.
But it'll be on a city trail.
Yeah, I think it could be.
It could be because it's on the trail.
But that's your point. But yeah, it could.
Future development, we included in the plan and future development.
That's exactly why we wanted to do the policy, is so we can better incorporate these crossings in the future.
I think that's it for discussion. If there's anything else, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Then Jeremy, do you have a follow-up?
I would like to move to direct staff to continue with internally striping and marking the two locations along Gleason discussed several meetings ago.
Any further discussion? Aye. Those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
On to 9D, which was added in all of information on the bottom I got from the council.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Councilor Bottomley was able to reach out to the representative at the Met Council, and we were able to get some information on net densities. Our understanding of net densities is that you have to permanently preserve the area. We have been working to schedule a meeting. Natalie has been working with Freya to schedule a meeting, just to confirm that is the way that they intended it to be written. So we hope to have some additional information here in September and can follow up with council on that if council would like us to. At this time, from a staff perspective, we want to make sure that we're understanding it correctly. So no matter what, we'll meet with them, but if there's further information or further follow-up with directing us to make amendments to doing further preservation, we certainly can do so.
John, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think this is good, and with the details are gonna be important, like, can we? If somebody comes in here, do we have to have them outline specifically before a proposal comes in, or can we just say? If somebody says, hey, I want to make this 2.1, and in order to do that, I'll dedicate this piece of property to trees, forever, whatever. So, yeah, I think this is on the right track.
Yeah. Okay.
So by dedicating it permanently with an account for calculation.
That's what I'm hearing.
That is our understanding. Now, I think that the way that it is written on here is that areas protected or removed from development have to be by local ordinance. So that's where we need to get some clarification on what does local ordinance mean? Does our understanding is it has to be mapped beforehand, that we would outline where the mapped areas are. But is there any flexibility on what that mapping looks like is what I'm hearing.
Or can we write a code that says if then, or whatever, in these
They're all
residential.
great
zones,
questions.
If you do this, then you can do this or whatever.
Yeah.
That way it's written in code, but in such a way that doesn't bind anybody.
No, yeah, I think that's the right issue to sort out. Perfect.
So what's the next step?
Staff.
Staff is gonna be meeting with, due to vacations, the Met Council person is out, this week and Natalie's out the next 2 weeks. And so it'd be early September, the first couple weeks in September. And then we were hoping to bring something back by the September 28th meeting. So just to have an update for council.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to unfinished, or no, I'm sorry, new business. We have public comment opportunity for items 10A through D.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone in the audience who would like to speak on any of these items, you can come to the podium, state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 if you're on a phone, or click reactions and raise your hand if you're on an electronic device. Mayor and Council, at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Move on to 10A.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I wanna make a motion to table this until after our next budget discussions, because a lot of the budgetary items and positions and stuff are gonna be impacted by our budget next year. And I think like this, I think that it's putting the cart before the horse a little bit. I want to get a good idea of what's the most important piece and that kind of thing in budget discussions first, and then revisit that when this done. Some of this is actually going to apply whether it's in the budget or not, because it's just the restating of position. But I don't wanna agree to a reorg until we have the funds to at least come forward, like, is expected. And obviously, if this doesn't pass, then I'll just part of this guy.
Might be wise to do it with the new administrator. Have them. Be part of the reorganization.
You weren't here, we talked about that last time. And
I think this is.
Yeah, so the reason, so we've been looking at a reorganization for some time, in part. Looking at setting up a structure for the new city administrator to have less direct reports. Just that takes time for them to be working with, kind of. Right now, there are 5 direct reports and there are a variety of different subjects. So allowing the admin services director to take the planning and public planning and parks and recreation supervisor is really trying to limit that scope a little bit, since they're not department head positions that need some work with and direction on items, to provide that to the administrative services director, who could provide some more mentoring and things like that. So that was the idea behind it. Certainly something the council, if you'd like to wait on and have the new city administrator, certainly your prerogative to wait.
I would agree that it makes sense to have the administrator not have a huge number of direct reports. I don't think 5 is a huge number, as they're getting their feet under them and understanding how the different functions interact and the strengths and weaknesses of the team. I think it makes sense to not make significant org changes until after they get exposure to the team. I would support a motion to defer till after budget. I would also support a motion to defer until after that new administrator is hired and has been on the job for 90 days, and understands what we're getting.
The clarifying point on the initial motion or discussion of motion was to table until after the August 24th work session, so to that meeting or to
So
September.
I mean, I would say table it until we're gonna need to digest whatever happens on August 24th. I don't think we'll be able to instantly.
Yeah.
we don't have, we'll have the budget adopted September 24th or September 14th is when we would be proposing to adopt the preliminary. So we could look at doing that after that, the 28th.
Can we talk before we decide on what my motion is? Can we explore? Because I brought it up last time about waiting for the new people, whoever that person is, to help with the reading.
Yeah.
And you weren't here. But I might have made a motion, I did, but it didn't pass if I did make a motion. But I'd be willing to put this off for, I mean, if we have this teed up as this is what we're thinking, the new administrator might say, yeah, it's a good idea, and then we just pass it. Or they might say, well, this is how we did it at the last city I was in, or whatever. They might have some things we haven't thought of. But I also don't want to have, like, conceptually, I think this is okay, like, I'm not against all these ideas. But also, for sure want to wait until after the budget, and I may want to have, I know that if I came into an organization under a city admin and they changed the organization's structure and probably like 2 months before I accepted the job, it would kind of bug me, like, you want to stand. I would want to say, well, they might say, well, I don't know, but they might just say, well, I don't like this idea. Or they might just say, yeah, you're on the right track here, let's go, I agree with it, I don't need X, Y, Z or whatever, I don't know. I almost think this should be like top of the mind when they come in. And if they say, yeah, fine, then we just pass.
I understand where staff might want the reorganization done before an administrator comes in, but. I think it'd also be an enticement to somebody looking up for that job and new administration. That they can, but they have some type of flexibility for within.
I think they would regardless of, I mean, just budgeting this wouldn't prohibit. The administrator.
Or the budget is separate from a reorg.
Yeah.
And I just know only one position is affected by the reorg, and it would have to look at the numbers again, but I think we're talking less than $5,000.
Well, there's two positions, right? It's the city administrator and. Yeah.
Oh, for the
Administrative services person.
the only,
Whoever's moving people from one place to the other, the whole thing.
so the two positions underneath the city admin services director is the position that would have a change in grade. The city administrator does not have a change in.
No, but I mean, it was reporting to that.
And those folks are not positioned to change grades. They have a change in reporting structure, but not a change in compensation. So there's only one position that's changing compensation.
I'd be willing to make a motion following what Jeremy said and look at it 90 days after that. Start with the administrator.
So do I have to rescind my motion?
Did you officially make it?
I did.
Mhm.
I don't think there was a second though.
Well, I didn't really give it an opportunity for the second time.
So my motion, so
Do you want to rescind it?
why don't we vote on it and just,
Okay, well, if we, so we have. John.
oh wait, nobody seconded, so it dies, my motion dies.
That's where I was going with it. Yeah, I want to give it an opportunity to. Didn't want to shortchange it on it.
Oh, I'm not,
But, okay, good deal. That worked. Then that died, we'll go on to John. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll just make a motion. We have a second on that one.
Second.
So any further discussion? I think I'm going to be the one dissenting, vote on this, just because I don't think we're gonna. The next city administrator, I get this point you're making. But I think that we think these changes and still. Either way, so, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. 4-1. On to. And B was really more just.
A follow-up to 10B, and just really noting that one of the things that I think we've identified as a leadership team is that we, for future organizational items, we think that in the future, one of the key positions that we would be looking at is potentially community development director position to really lead those planning and building inspection and parks division. So there's no formal action that needs to be taken on that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So under public works, we're adding development superintendent, and we're adding parks planning under development superintendent. Would it also make sense to think about in the future org structure, does the recreation supervisor also belong under public works? I thought at one time we talked about having public works encompassing both an operation side and a park side and a utility side. Is that still the long-term vision? We're just not at that level yet, or have we changed how we're perceiving that long-term?
I think that we we're thinking that parks, especially with the recreation perspective, that we might have a parks maintenance portion under public works, and then with recreation and park planning, since those are so closely tied to development of land and other and construction, that it would potentially make sense to have it under the community development director position in the future, but certainly something that as the new city administrator comes in, would be definitely an area to look at.
Yeah. Then, let's see. Yeah, can I make a motion on this one? Actually, I believe that had, some tweak language that they would like us to consider first, but then. once we hear
And
that-
then, yes,
I did, thank you, Mayor and Council. The only tweak that we'd request for what was recommended was motion authorizing the order of the 2 Ford Explorer Interceptors. And we'd like to add or similar SUV, just with the problems we ran into in the past for their availability. We have used, we have a Tahoe in the fleet, Durangos or Explorer. Something similar to that would be our intent, but there might be a couple reasons why we might want to deviate from a Ford Explorer, not changing any amounts or any expectations, but just, I guess we'd ask just to broaden it slightly.
I would like to make the motion to approve that, but I also want to, like, can we get rid of? So when we get new vehicles, I think we got a lot of cars. Can we get rid of a couple too then when we get new ones? We're at
So
we
right,
haven't gotten rid of an Interceptor like 4 purchases in a row.
so yeah, so right now in the police department, we keep 1 extra patrol vehicle. I would think we'd like to probably keep that. And I don't know if you're referring to the city hall ones or the,
Yeah,
and-
that's what- yeah.
Yeah.
The old cop cars become.
yeah, I think our hope would be to send some to auction. As I
we've
understand.
been talking about reviewing that, there was the program, review of vehicles, and I think that there needs to be some further discussion about getting
Okay,
other vehicles off of our.
okay. So one is, it's not. I'm not gonna qualify, I want to make a motion that we actually purchase them. I don't know if we need to make a motion, but maybe within that motion, I would like to see us get rid of a couple of vehicles rather than keep them.
Yeah, I think you were saying that doesn't necessarily have to be part of the motion, that's just general.
Direction,
Yeah.
consensus.
And when we do the overall CIP, that's when we outline what we keep, what we get rid of. So this is kind of a pre-authorization, and I think it's coming soon that we'll be bringing the next 24-25 plan. So that's where you can reformalize that statement, but that's where we can include that plan.
John did have the motion, the amended language. We have a second on that. Second.
Yeah, just comments. I'm nervous opening it up to other vehicles. There are significant issues related to one of the vehicles you talked about. The Durango seems to be having some problems, so I would leave that up to your judgment to make that your last choice. That makes sense.
Sounds good.
Otherwise,
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the cost of the squad plus upfitting equipment. Do we generally upfit with the same equipment, or do we look at new technology as well to try to incorporate that? Well, I met several officers at 1990, some of which are new to the department. One of the questions I asked a few of them is there things that their old department equipment wise that they had that we don't have, that they thought would be good? Some mentioned some car equipment technology. So I'm wondering. Yeah, I know you're on the forefront of what's going on in technology, but do we look at things like that and try to bring new improvements that could help the community?
Yeah, absolutely. We do a blend. So we reuse what we can, and we have a general idea of what we can get for life cycle out of it. So for instance, if a roll cage or prisoner compartment will transfer, we'll try and transfer that forward. We know for light bars, we usually try to make it 2 cycles, but not longer based on electronics. So we're fairly dialed in on what we can reuse, what we should reuse, and then we look at opportunities for replacement. So for instance, if we've reached what we believe is the life cycle for a radar unit, we'll kind of open it up and say, okay, we'll reassess the market. And then during the replacement, try and incorporate that new technology. So it really is a blend of when what we're cycling out has reached the end of the life cycle.
Yeah.
We replace it. And if there's certainly if there's specific proposals from the officers, or I'd like to follow up with you if there's any ideas. We're
Yeah.
certainly
I
interested in that.
thought the one idea that was here was pretty good, so.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We have a motion and a second, and that was discussion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. 10D is just the work sessions for September 28th, October 12th, and October 26th, which is not our next two meetings, but after that, I think we have work sessions already for the next.
We have work sessions for the next.
Does this work for at least, those days work for at least three of us? I should be able to make all of them, as well, but it's gonna make you, so that will be that. Yeah. Okay, I'll go ahead and call work sessions for September 28th, October 12th, and October 26th at 5:30 PM. For the topic laid out in agenda item. Okay, then we are on to closed session.
Yeah.
As-
Give us just one second. Wait, didn't make it off the page. Apologize. Sorry, I have.
The city council is going into 2 consecutive closed sessions to consider an offer for real estate under the authority of Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3C3. The city is permitted to close a meeting to consider offers and counter offers for the purchase or sale of real or personal property. The city council is going into closed session to consider an offer for real estate or personal property. The following properties are the subject of the closed meeting. PID 231123410007, PID 241923330001, PID 24119233330002. On adjournment of that closed session, the city council is going into closed session to consider an offer for real estate. The following property is the subject of that closed meeting. PID 36119233330009.
Now, I mean, come on.
Okay, I'll call the meeting back to order. In the first closed session, staff was provided direction. In the second closed session, city council discussed an offer for real estate, and staff will now present a recommended agreement.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. We had a First Amendment to the property improvement and easement agreement that was presented with the Lakeview property. There were some minor changes to the easement that were discussed, and would like to offer opportunity for the council to approve that amended agreement as reviewed.
I will make a motion to authorize.
With the ability for them, the city attorney to make minor edits.
I will make a motion to authorize the execution of the amended property improvements. And easement agreement with final edits subject to the city attorney. All right, thanks, and second. Michelle can say.
I got Schultz and Bottom.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that, is there any other business? We've got Country Days this weekend, and on Sunday. Summerfest at the Birchville One Room Schoolhouse. They're having their annual thing, so. Go on. Have fun. See you
Also
guys
wonderful
this
Corcoran event.
weekend. Great.
Wonderful.
Nothing else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.